Good evening, KPFA listeners. I'm mikO Tolliver, and welcome to a very special Labor Day edition of our KPFA Holiday Hijack. Today, we've been honoring the incredible contributions of workers across the country, and now we're taking a closer look at the heart of our own station, the KPFA Labor Union. I'm thrilled to have with us tonight a true KPFA legend, Philip Maldari, host of The Sunday Show, which airs Sundays at 9 a.m. For over 50 years, Philip has been a vital part of this station, wearing many hats as a host, programmer, and advocate. His voice has guided countless conversations, and his deep commitment to the principles of free speech and workers' rights has made a lasting impact on KPFA and the wider community. Tonight, Philip will be sharing his firsthand experiences with the KPFA Labor Union, from its early days to the key battles and triumphs that have shaped our station's history. As someone who has lived and breathed KPFA for over 5 decades, Philip offers a unique perspective on the challenges and victories that have defined our labor union's journey. So, sit back and stay tuned as we dive into the history of the KPFA Labor Union with Philip Maldari. This is a conversation rich with history, insights, and reflections on what it means to stand up for workers' rights within one of the most storied radio stations in the country. You're listening to KPFA's Labor Day Holiday Hijack special broadcast. Stay with us for an unforgettable hour with Philip Maldari, right here on KPFA.
My name is Philip Maldari, and I got started at KPFA when my best friend said essentially that I wasn't going to see her at all unless I came down to KPFA and helped answer the phones during the fund drive. This was February of '73. I was deeply in the closet in those days, but when I came to KPFA, it was the first time that I ever had been around gay men who were leftists and anti-Vietnam War activists. And that gave me really the impetus to come out as a gay man back in '73. And I joined the Gay Men's Collective, which was called Fruit Punch. And we had 1 hour every Wednesday night from 10 to 11. And we prided ourselves on being the first gay men's radio program on the planet, I think is what we said. I'm not sure. In any case, there were also lesbian programs on the station at that time. And again, we were very self-righteous leftists. And KPFA was, of course, very left in its focus. But again, I was a volunteer. I answered the phones at reception after the fundraising drive was over, and that was 73 to 74. 1974, the then manager, Roger Pritchard, laid off several people on the payroll. I think at least 2 of them were African American. And at the same time, he hired somebody from the outside, a person named Craig Pies, who's still around. I see him on Facebook. We had no idea who Craig Pies was. In any case, to be firing black people and hiring white people, it just was too much. And so in August of 1974, there was a station-wide strike that shut down the station entirely. We were off the air for the entire month of August of 1974. I, of course, had been unpaid the whole time. I was never paid at that time. But I was picket captain, and my job was to make sure that we staffed the picket lines in front of the building, then on Shattuck Avenue. So after a month of that, we got all of our demands met. We re-entered the station victorious. And with that, we established a different union. There had been a union before, which I knew nothing about because it was before my time. But starting in '74, we established a union and affiliated with the United Electrical Workers. Part of the reason we affiliated with United Electrical Workers was because it was one of the few, if not the only unions to stand up to Joe McCarthy during the red baiting era and refuse to fire any people that were Communist Party members in the UE. So that was the basis for our joining UE. And we continued in UE for quite a few years, actually, as our union. And one of the important things that UE allowed for us to do was to establish a paid staff and an unpaid staff. It was obvious that there wasn't enough money to pay all the people involved. I mean, we had probably 100 or 200 people in the building at that time. But there was a core group of paid staff members that deserved union recognition and union rights. So that was the union for the paid staff. And then for the unpaid staff, also known as volunteers, there were protections as well. But of course, no paycheck, no, wages, hours, working conditions. But there were some things about working conditions and hours that were protected for unpaid workers. And also a lot of protections against any paid staff person that tried to manipulate an unpaid person with more airtime if they somehow came across, I don't know how to use that term, but there were protections for the unpaid staff as well.
So there was a union before the union that we have now.
Yes. United Electrical Workers remained our union probably for 20 years or so. I don't know exactly when the switch happened, but it must have been around 15 years, around 1988 or so. We realized that the United Electrical Workers, I was an official of our local at UE. By then I was on the paid staff. I was a paid staff member, co-director of public affairs. And what had happened is United Electrical had been an industrial union with contracts with Westinghouse and General Electric, both of whom had plants here in the Bay Area with blue-collar workers. Well, both those plants were shut down during the Reagan years, and consequently, we were the only shop in the entire local, and that really didn't work for us. So consequently, we looked around for a new union, and we ended up deciding on Communication Workers of America, Local 9415. Now, CWA, Communication Workers of America, came out of the phone company, actually, and to this day, most phone company employees at AT&T are represented by CWA. There is also a local of CWA here in the Bay Area, not 9415, a different one, which also represents people in the staff of KQED, I think primarily KQED. KALW staff is largely represented by the teachers, SEIU, and others. But in any case, CWA is a strong union. It has lots of members nationwide. It has lots of members here in the Bay Area. And they were totally open to our rather strange arrangement of paid and unpaid staff.
It's really interesting to know that we had a union before, and then we got a new union. I guess that's how I hear you telling it to me. But you feel like you don't know much about that first initial union, how it came to be, or?
Well, that would be the third union. Yeah, that's before 1974. I can't speak to that.
Wait a minute. So now there have been a history of 3 unions here at KPFA.
I don't know anything about the union before 74, but there was some kind of a union. But the United Electrical Workers started in 1974, and then we changed unions probably around 85 to become Communication Workers of America.
What were the initial goals and objectives of the KPFA Labor Union?
So starting in 74, we were very suspicious of management that would essentially run roughshod over workers' rights. We also realized that a union can't really talk about what's on the air, what is the content. The reason is that we are representing people who are currently on the air and people who could potentially go on the air in the future. So there is no way that the union could really start dictating content, or, for example, who gets to be on the air 2 o'clock on Tuesday. If we got involved in who got on the air at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, that it's an unending problem for a union to be conflicted about who are you going to represent here. So from the beginning there, we made clear that we were not a union that was talking about who's on the air. We were a union talking about wages, hours, and working conditions. So that was the focus. The pay always was pretty minimal, but we attempted to get increased pay and benefits, including generous vacation pay, vacation leave. We also established retirement, a 403B actually is what it's called, a 403B retirement program. It's pretty minimal. It's not the best, but it's something. And we also had protections so that someone could not be fired without cause. So that meant there had to be actual hearing to decide whether this person deserved to stay in their job or somehow had deserved to be laid off or fired. So those kinds of things are union issues. Whether you like the program that so-and-so does on Thursday afternoon is not the issue. It's about protecting the rights of the paid staff. It also protected unpaid people because frequently unpaid people are asked to substitute for paid people when the paid people go on vacation or sick leave. And that meant that it protected those unpaid substitute workers with wages at the prevailing wage at the station. So unpaid people who do substitute for paid people are in fact compensated with full pay that is base pay at KPFA.
Do you feel like you would have any examples of how the union has protected certain workers or other staff around here?
Well, it gets complicated because Pacifica Foundation has 5 stations and KPFA is just one of them. So even though we had management here at KPFA that in most cases was certainly sympathetic to the staff, at a national level, it's been a roller coaster at different times. And so I'll give you one example. The morning show that I did for years with from 87 to 2000 with Chris Welch. She and I co-hosted 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. Chris changed to doing the talkies in 2000. I left the morning show in 2009 and was replaced by Brian Edwards Teekert. At that time, my co-host who continued with Brian was Amy Allison. New executive director at the foundation came in and fired Brian Edwards Teekert and Amy Allison. This went to arbitration, and in fact, it was successful in reinstating Brian Edwards Teekert, but unsuccessful at reinstating Amy Allison to her job here at KPFA. So there's an example of an arbitrary action by management that was totally in violation of the contract, and consequently, we were able to use the union structure of arbitration to make sure that it was reversed.
President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, speaking on Labor Day in 1941.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
On this day, this American holiday, we are celebrating the rights of free, laboring men and women. The preservation of these rights is vitally important now not only to us who enjoy them, but to the whole future of Christian civilization. American labor now bears a tremendous responsibility. We know that one of the first acts of the Axis dictatorship has been to wipe out all the principles and standards which labor had been able to establish for its own preservation and advancement. Trade unionism is a forbidden philosophy under these rule or ruin dictators, but trade unionism demands full freedom of expression and peaceful assembly. Trade unionism has helped to give to everyone who toils the position of dignity which is his due. The present position of labor in the United States, as an interdependent unit in the life of the nation, has not come about by chance. It has been an evolutionary process of a healthy democracy at work. And we know that a free labor system is the very foundation of a functioning democracy.
Happy Labor Day, folks. I'm mikO Tolliver, here with Philip Maldari for our KPFA Labor Day Holiday Hijack. I've been talking with Philip about the history of the KPFA Labor Union. In your history of being here, do you know of some key figures who have really been pivotal in establishing the union or maintaining the union or just really making sure that the union is the best that it can be here in your time at KPFA?
Well, there are a lot of people, and so consequently it's a pretty awkward. But I think Ginny Z. Burson, who came out of the women's movement and became initially the director of the women's department here at KPFA. And then Ginny went on to be program director of KPFA for probably more than a decade. Program director is a management position, not a union position. But so she was, in fact, on top of union members and showing a whole lot of respect for union members and the rights of union members as well as unpaid staff. Ginny Burson went on to become a top official in the National Federation of Community Broadcasters, NFCB, and she is still a fabulous person, active in all kinds of issues, including women's music, as well as all kinds of political activity. There are many others. Of course, Larry Bensky. Larry actually probably never was really a member of the union, as for most of his career at KPFA, he was unpaid. He briefly was station manager, but he just passed a few months ago. Larry Bensky was central to supporting the strike back in '74 and supporting each of our struggles since then. So he's another person that I think of very fondly. Barry Scott was the head of the Third World Department. Barry was among the people laid off allegedly for financial, what can I call it, a financial shortfall. The then executive director of the foundation, or actually Mary Frances Berry laid off Barry Scott and others here at KPFA, causing a major crisis at KPFA with these layoffs and essentially shutting down the station in a lockout that lasted approximately a month. During that period of time, the union was strong. Communication Workers was with us the whole way, and we eventually retook the station, reestablished our union rights in the station, and Mary Frances Berry and her cohorts on the national board quit or were eliminated. So that was a particular crisis. But again, among the people who were attacked were people of color, women, and we stood strong together to reverse all of that.
I'm glad that you mentioned the strike. Now, for me, I've only been here for about 5.5 years, so I'm still really getting to know the culture of KPFA versus people who, like yourself, who have really been here, part of the history and establishing the culture and maintaining things and creating such a great space. But I have heard about this strike time and time again, and I'm just curious if you have any stories from that strike period that you could share with us as they relate to the labor union and such.
Not sure I would call it a strike. I think I would call it a lockout. And what happened at that time was that they hired rent-a-cops who were armed in the building, Mary Frances Berry. And these rent-a-cops would not allow you in the building without them checking your ID. They controlled the doors of the building. They were absolutely, what can I say, intimidating. And then a night came when, in fact, it became an email was intercepted from the National Board that implied that the board was considering selling KPFA. And that became a news story on the newscast that night with Mark Miracle delivering the news. And in fact, Dennis Bernstein from Flashpoints had been reading this email that implied they were about to sell KPFA when the powers that be ordered a shutdown of the newscast. And with that, these rent-a-cops came into the control room and demanded they turn off the microphones, and with that, the station was off the air. And with that, hundreds of people gathered here on Martin Luther King Jr. Way, and the Berkeley police were out in force. It was like 6 o'clock at night, and we started fighting back against this lockout. The fight back, as mentioned, lasted about a month, and finally we were able to overturn the National Board and seat new people with a whole new governance system. The governance system we have now over the board elections for all 5 of the station, board elections for the local board and the national board, all of that came out of that lockout. And to this day, I'm not thrilled with what we have now. It's not perfect, but it does represent a form of democracy that we certainly didn't have before.
That's great. Yes, I was going to ask you, what were some of the key changes that happened because of that lockout that you prefer to call it instead? Is it just the board, or are there other things that came about because of that lockout?
Well, it's the management structure is something that is somewhat complicated. With these new bylaws of the Pacifica Foundation, I hesitate to say that as a former union member that the union, what can I say? The union does not control what happens with management. Management is part of a whole set of bylaws that result in each local board at each of the 5 stations being elected by both the staff and the listeners of those 5 stations. Each of those 5 local boards then elect from their own number people to the national board. And the national board, which has, I think, 3 or 4 members from each of the 5 stations, so we're talking about 20 people on the national board, they select the executive director of the foundation, and the executive director of the foundation hires and fires managers. So again, it's not that the union controls any of that. It's just that the union was very much a part of making sure that what happened next after the lockout was going to be a democratization of Pacifica, and we were not going to go back to the days when a self-perpetuating board could arbitrarily not only fire managers, but fire staff willy-nilly.
And I recall you mentioned that there were people you had seen who were fired willy-nilly, as you refer to it.
I know that term is very ancient. Well, also, they fired the manager, Nicole Sawaya. But, of course, the union doesn't control whether they fire the manager. That is not in the purview of the union. So the firing of Nicole Sawaya, who went on to doing great radio management jobs both up in Ukiah and I think at KLW as well. In any case, a fabulous woman who unfortunately died way too young. But it is indicative of the fact that the union is a union. It is not management. We do not control who's on the air at 2 o'clock on Tuesday.
KPFA Radio is a community-powered, listener-supported radio station based in Berkeley, California. We are able to bring you this content through donations and support from our listeners. Please consider supporting KPFA through a donation by visiting www.kpfa.org/donate. And now let's get back to the program. So you're telling me about the history of the you call it the lockout. I've heard it called the strike. but definitely that there was an entire block. Also being that we are 100% listener supported, we here at KPFA Radio can sometimes go through financial troubles. How do you feel like the union has been a part of those challenges or protecting people, or have they even created situations that have made it difficult?
The union is very well informed by management of the current financial situation all the time. And that is essential for the union to be able to be reasonable when it comes to the negotiating table about pay and benefits. KPFA paid staff have full Kaiser coverage, as do every member of their family. This is a huge expense. So again, you're talking about a payroll that has to be absolutely tight, because it's not just the paychecks. Think of that benefit of Kaiser coverage for workers and their family. So the union takes all of this information in and goes into negotiating with management on these issues, fully informed on what is reasonable, what is possible, what we can do, and also how we can help. So in my case, I stayed on the paid staff, reducing my hours from when I was co-host of the morning show from full-time to three-quarter time, then to half-time. So I reduced my hours, and then when I passed 65 and could receive all the benefits of Medicare and of course Social Security, I dropped off the paid staff entirely and became a member of the unpaid staff once again, like I had been back in the 70s when I was on the unpaid staff. Again, dropping off the payroll meant that the station could, in fact, use that money for others that are certainly in need and doing incredible work here at KPFA. So it's not okay to exploit unpaid people because they want a chance to do radio. What KPFA offers is incredible training, incredible experience. You hear many KPFA veterans on the air at other stations. I just heard Tyke Hendricks over at KQED doing a story that was picked up on Morning Edition about Kamala Harris. I'm thinking of others who came through KPFA and are now in other venues, let's put it that way, making a decent living. Richard Gonzalez, who is co-director of public affairs, also at NPR. A lot of training that happens for people here at KPFA allows them to go on to other jobs in other places. So I think that KPFA cannot possibly employ all the people that really deserve to be employed. We don't have that kind of money. But we can train people, and hopefully they can use that training to advance their careers in other venues.
Do you know of other ways that the union protects unpaid staff here at the station?
Well, I don't even know if it's come up, but if there is, we had a management person who will remain nameless, who hit on women at the station. And I won't go into much detail about that, but to say that the union was right there, and that management person not only stepped back from that behavior, but didn't last long at KPFA. So we very clearly are a station that respects the individual rights of both paid and unpaid staff, men, women, gay, straight, binary, non-binary. That is in our DNA, and it's something that the union is part of.
So then you would say that the union is really, really a big part of what creates the culture here at KPFA and allows people opportunities to flourish.
Most definitely. The union is here to protect everyone, paid and unpaid, and it also does its best to provide a living wage and benefits for those on the paid staff and their families. It's a question of how much money is even possible given the the expenses of running a radio station. But the union is very much a part of making sure that all those other issues are definitely addressed. If someone on the unpaid staff feels that they have been treated in a harsh or inappropriate manner, this is dealt with in a clear and open fashion, and it is definitely something that the union protects.
President Barack Obama speaking on Labor Day in 2012.
I am honored. We are honored to spend this day with you and your families, the working men and women of America. This day belongs to you. You deserve a little R&R, a little barbecue, a little grilling, because you've been working hard. You've been working hard to make ends meet. You've been working hard to build a better life for your kids. You've been working hard to build a better Detroit. But that's not all I'm going to talk to you about. I also want to talk about the work you've been doing for decades. Work to make sure that folks get an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. Work to make sure that families get a fair shake. The work you've done that helped build the greatest middle class that the world has ever known. I'm talking about the work that got us a 40-hour work week and weekends and paid leave and pensions and the minimum wage and health insurance and Social Security and Medicare, the cornerstones of middle-class security. That's because of your work. If you want to know who helped lay these cornerstones of an American middle class, you just have to look for the union labor. That's the bedrock this country is built on. Hard work, responsibility, sacrifice, looking out for one another, giving everybody a shot, everybody a chance to share in America's prosperity, from the factory floor to the boardroom. That's what unions are all about. And that's something that's worth keeping in mind today. We've come through a difficult decade in which those values were all too often given short shrift. We've gone through a decade where wealth was valued over work and greed was valued over responsibility. And the decks were too often stacked against ordinary folks in favor of the special interests. And everywhere I went while I was running for this office, I met folks who felt their economic security slipping away. Men and women who were fighting harder and harder just to stay afloat. And that was even before the economic crisis hit. And that just made things even harder. So these are tough times for working Americans. They're even tougher for Americans who are looking for work. And a lot of them have been looking for work for a long time. A lot of folks have been looking for work for a long time here in Detroit and all across Michigan and all across the Midwest and all across the country. So we got a lot more work to do to recover fully from this recession. But I'm not satisfied just to get back to where we were before the recession. We've got to fully restore the middle class in America. And America cannot have a strong, growing economy without a strong, growing middle class and without a strong labor movement. That's the central challenge that we face in our country today. That's at the core of why I ran for president. That's what I've been fighting for since I've been president. Everything we've done, it's been thinking about you. We said working folks deserved a break, so within 1 month of me taking office, we signed into law the biggest middle-class tax cut in history, putting more money into your pockets. We said working folks shouldn't be taken advantage of, so we passed tough financial reforms that ended the days of taxpayer bailouts and stopped credit card companies from gouging you with hidden fees and unfair rate hikes, and set up a new consumer protection agency with one responsibility: sticking up for you. We said that if you're going to work hard all day to provide a better life for your kids, then we're going to make sure that those kids get the best education possible. So we helped keep teachers on the job. We're reforming our public schools, and we're investing in community colleges and job training programs. And we ended wasteful giveaways that went to the big banks and used the savings to make college more affordable for millions of your kids.
And you're listening to the KPFA Labor Day Holiday Hijack special broadcast, an interview with Philip Maldari, who's had over 50 years experience here at KPFA and is telling us all about the amazing history and his experiences with the KPFA Labor Union. You've given me so much information about the history of the union here. Just the fact that this is, I guess, the third rendition of it. To makes me want to go back down that rabbit hole a little bit more. Because, like I said, I've only been here 5.5 years. I love it. It's a great experience. I've learned a lot. I have a lot of experience. I really feel like I've been able to step up my game in terms of my professionalism and just media. It's great. I love it. But I do feel like every time I learn something here at the station, or I find out about something, I kind of have to play this Sherlock Holmes detective work to go figure out, what is this? What's this story? What's the history of it? How does it go back? Like, how long has this been here? And so to have the union here and to find out that we've actually had this is the third rendition of that's crazy to me. Now I want to figure out who could I reach out to find out more about the earliest history of the union here at KPFA.
Well, so many people have passed, so I hesitate I have to rack my brain about I think Alan Snitow, who was news director in the 1970s at KPFA, 70s. Alan Snitow is still around doing great work with his wife, Deborah Kaufman, doing incredible documentaries. Alan was very much a part of the early KPFA union activities in the 1970s. So I would encourage you to talk to Alan Snitow. Let me think of other people that you might want to check out.
The union allowed a dedicated group of dedicated volunteers, the unpaid staff, to have job descriptions, hours, and evaluations. How do you feel like that has benefited the station?
So a member of the unpaid staff is someone who is here, obviously, because they want to be here, but they're not here to get exploited. So an unpaid staff person deserves to know that their work is respected, that their work is, I don't know how to put it, airtime in public radio is, well, I guess in all media, airtime is the money that doesn't exist. You can reward somebody with airtime. You can punish somebody by taking away their airtime. This opens all kinds of avenues for exploitation. So even though the station doesn't have money to pay the unpaid staff, it does have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that means that those workers who would dearly love to have a program on the air could be exploited in all kinds of different ways, holding out the possible reward of airtime. This is totally inappropriate. It's unprofessional. It's something that the union definitely can address and would address it when it comes up. So again, putting it concisely, if you are able to punish someone by canceling their program, you have to do it because of the benefit of the program, not because you want to punish somebody. It has to be what is the best air quality, what is the best program that can be put on the air given the time constraints. And that means that anyone that attempts to use airtime in a personal way, in a way that is a way to reap personal advantage over somebody else, that's not allowed.
I love all this information that you're giving me about how the union just protects unpaid staff. It's really great to know that that's here. You know, a lot of people do think of volunteers, oh, they're not paid, they're just giving their time, it doesn't matter. Just you know, they really do overlook and I feel like from what you're telling me that the existence of a union here really requires us to respect what these people offer us and bring to the table here to create KPFA.
Well, it also has to be said that if somebody's doing a lousy program, by lousy, you know, that's sort of subjective. I took people off the air. I took people off the air as a union member taking off unpaid staff people, and it's not fun. You know, these people are upset that I took them off the air. I took them off the air because their program just wasn't measuring up, and the help I offered was not being taken advantage of. I remember one programmer who did an interview program who consistently didn't allow her guests to even talk. So I brought this up with her, and was doing a review of her program. People deserve a review. They need to have an opportunity to improve. And so I brought it up with her that she was not allowing her guests to talk, and that she was not even asking questions. She was just giving speeches. And she said, but Philip, I know so much more than they do. And with that, I realized that this person really does not need to be doing an interview program. And so with that, I said, well, I'm canceling your program now. And of course, she cried, and I felt horrible. I felt like for this woman to be crying over the loss of her program, and I was the person that canceled the program. But I was secure in the fact that I was doing what was the best radio. And so that's an example of what is involved in an unpaid staff person's right. They have a right to actually have an evaluation of what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, an opportunity to improve. And if all of that fails, well, you know, there are a lot of other people that probably could do a much better job with a radio program.
Okay, so that's great to hear how you have helped the station maintain its quality in programming. Now, that's telling me of how you've had to cancel a show. Do you have some examples of how the union has helped to save a show?
I think not. Because, as mentioned before, the union stays out of programming. The union does not play favorites with one program versus another program. So consequently, it is not the union's job to decide what's going to be on the air at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. That is not a union prerogative and shouldn't be. So when you say save a program, I think something like saving the morning show when the two hosts were fired, that is a union issue. You're talking about firing paid staff members here. That resulted in saving a program. But again, it was not based on the content of that program. It was based on that those union members, their protections of the union were being violated.
You said you've been here since 1973. That's 51 years. So I feel like in that time, you've seen it all. You've seen them come, you've seen them go. You've seen the successes, you've seen the failures, you've really seen the culture create and maintain itself, just the bad decisions, the good decisions. Can you speak to, just give us like a rundown of the various roles and shows that you've participated in here at the station?
Well, given 51 years, I already mentioned that I was a member of the gay men's collective Fruit Punch back in the 70s, and we had 1 hour every Wednesday night at 10 o'clock. And we would start each program with this. At that time, there was a rebroadcast of the evening news at 11. Every program, this is 1973 to 79, something like that. The following program may contain some frank language. If you think this might distress you, please tune out and rejoin us at 11 o'clock for the rebroadcast of the evening news. That was every Fruit Punch program started with that disclaimer at the top. During that period of time, I was a professional gardener in the Berkeley Hills. That's how I earned a living while I was volunteering many hours at KPFA. So I started a program which was just a feature in a magazine program called Traffic Jam on at 5 o'clock. And this was Philip the Gardener. So I gave gardening advice on the radio, and people would call in with their gardening problems. And of course, snails was always the biggest issue of what was problematic for listeners and what to do about snails. And I, of course, said, kill them, you know. And then I co-hosted that program called Traffic Jam, which was 5 to 6, a magazine format program. And then I was hired as public affairs co-director, which is at the time was a largely administrative job, not an on-air job. And I was essentially, as mentioned above, I was in charge of about 40 unpaid staff members, including Bill Mandel and Mama O'Shea. All these people I was responsible for as an administrator. And then in 87, I joined Chris Welch as co-host of the morning show in 87, and I stayed on the morning show from 87 until 2009. So that's quite a run. And then starting in 2009, I've been host of the Sunday morning talk show that I call the Sunday Show. Andrea Lewis, my predecessor, called it Sunday Sedition, and Larry Bensky, her predecessor, called it Sunday Salon. In any case, I've been doing the Sunday Show as an unpaid staff member since 2009.
Okay, so then I would like to hear, what are some of your hopes and goals that you have for the union here, KPFA, as things continue to grow and evolve and move on now that we've hit 75 years, and hopefully, if the universe allows it, we can get another 75. What are you hoping? Where are you hoping we can go?
Well, I am fully aware of the fact that the Bay Area is one of the most expensive places on the planet to live. And the pay scale at KPFA, I'm really not clear what it is right this second, but it is no way generous enough to sustain people trying to pay the rent and buy the groceries and put gas in the car. So my hopes are that financially we are more successful and can compensate workers in a generous fashion. And this, of course, there's another aspect of this, and that is that you don't want KPFA to be a place where only trust fund children can afford to work. You don't want KPFA to be a place where only people that come from money are able to contribute. That's not KPFA. We want to be a place that allows people of modest means but great talent to, in fact, get a paying job that they can put groceries in the fridge and raise a family with. That's really my goal.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming to do this. I appreciate it. I feel like every time I reach out to you, you've been always so just helpful, encouraging, and just so willing to participate, definitely with this special, to tell us about the history of the KPFA Labor Union. Been talking here with Philip Maldari, host of the Sunday Show, who is here for our KPFA Labor Day Union special as he gives us his history on the KPFA Labor Union. Thank you so much, Philip.
Thank you.
President Joe Biden speaking on Labor Day in 2023.
I told when I ran for president, I told you I'd have your back, and I have. You know, there are a lot of politicians in this country who don't know how to say the word union. They talk about labor, they don't say union. It's union. I'm one of them. I'm proud to say union. I'm proud to be the most pro-union president according to the experts about in American history. And by the way, I make no bones about that. Folks, in this Labor Day, let me tell you what we're celebrating. We're celebrating jobs, good-paying jobs, jobs you can raise a family on, union jobs. You've heard me say it before, but my dad used to have an expression, I swear to God. He'd say, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck, for real. It's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, it's going to be okay, and mean it when you say it. And he was right. And I'm determined to make that a reality for every family in this country. And we are making it a reality. Nearly 13,500,000 jobs just since you got me sworn in January of 2020. America has the best workers in the world. That's a fact. And you guys ought to talk about it more. It can take 4 to 5 years to train as an apprentice. It's like going back to college. The jobs are constantly changing. The technology evolves. You have to keep stepping up. You have to get more training. You can't be the worst in the world. You're the best in the world. No, I really mean it. And I said, when I was vice president, I spoke with 364, I think, of CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies. And we asked them, what do you most need? You know what they said? A better educated workforce. I said, well, what the hell are you doing about it? You're not doing much about it. You're fighting everything we're doing in the unions as well as in the Democratic Party to make people better educated. Why are you doing it? Well, guess what? All of a sudden now you don't see them going after you nearly as much. Why? Because they know they need you. America's support for union is higher today than any time in nearly 60 years. And I'm continuing to call on Congress to fully and finally pass the Protect the Right to Organize, the PRO Act, which makes it easier to... Too many companies are still playing unfair, trying to prevent organization.
And that brings us to the end of this special Labor Day edition of the KPFA Holiday Hijack. We hope you've enjoyed this insightful and powerful conversation with Philip Maldari, a true KPFA icon who has spent over 50 years at this station. Hearing Philip's firsthand experiences and reflections on the history of the KPFA Labor Union has been a real treat, offering a unique glimpse into the challenges, victories, and ongoing efforts to uphold workers' rights right here at KPFA. Philip's stories remind us of the importance of standing together, advocating for fair treatment, and preserving the values that have made KPFA a beacon of free speech and social justice for so many decades. If you missed any part of tonight's broadcast or want to revisit it, don't worry. You can catch the full interview on our website at kpfa.org. And as always, thank you for being part of the KPFA community. Your support makes it possible for us to continue bringing you programming that matters. Stay tuned for more of your favorite shows right here on KPFA, and from all of us at the station, we wish you a meaningful and restful Labor Day. If you want to know more about KPFA and more about our history, our mission, our labor union, our staff, all of our information is on our website at kpfa.org. Also, remember to follow us online on our social media accounts, Facebook at KPFA 94.1, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch.tv, YouTube, TikTok at KPFA Radio. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I'm mikO Tolliver, and until next time, take care and keep the spirit of labor alive. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you want to find more KPFA radio content, log on to www.kpfa.org. Also follow us on social media by visiting Facebook at KPFA 94.1 and Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at KPFA Radio. Plus, check out our KPFA TV video content on YouTube and twitch.tv at KPFA Radio. Subscribe to this podcast and stay updated to when we release episodes of shows representing the best of KPFA Radio.